where hunger was just a word. A kingdom so incredibly wealthy that its story sounds more like a myth than actual history. Well, this is the story of Saba, a civilization that totally mastered its environment, only to be brought down by the smallest, most insignificant of creatures. So how did a paradise built on pure genius fall to the humblest of threats? Let's dive in. I know, it sounds impossible, right? Not an army, not a huge earthquake, not some cataclysmic disaster, just a mouse. This is the big question, the central mystery we're going to unravel today. It's a story that really makes you stop and think about what true strength really is and what a nation's greatest weakness might be. Okay, so to really understand their fall, we first have to get a picture of just how perfect their world was. We're talking about a place in what is now modern-day Yemen. And the nation of Saba wasn't just rich, it was a paradise literally engineered to be perfect. And that is not an exaggeration. Seriously, the land was so incredibly fertile, the climate so perfect, that they said a traveler could walk through the land with an empty basket over their head, and by the end of their journey, it would be filled with fruit that had just fallen from the trees. They didn't even have to pick it. The whole idea of scarcity, it just wasn't something they knew. Now, the heart of their kingdom, the secret sauce to all this abundance, was the Great Marib Dam. This thing was an absolute masterpiece of engineering. It was this incredible structure that would capture rainwater and then channel it through this super sophisticated irrigation system. And what that did was turn the desert all around it into two massive, lush gardens that stretched for miles and miles. This one dam was the engine of their entire civilization. Their society was so perfect that the Quran itself uses this simple, powerful phrase to describe their home. Just try to imagine that, a society so clean, so orderly, so peaceful that it was seen as a direct blessing. For all intents and purposes, it was heaven on earth. And right at the peak of this golden age, we have its most famous ruler, a queen whose wisdom was just as legendary as her kingdom's incredible wealth. Queen Bilqis? I mean, she wasn't just royalty. She was this incredibly intelligent and formidable leader, ruling this magnificent kingdom from a great throne. Her power was real, and her wisdom was famous. In fact, her fame spread so far that it reached one of the most powerful figures in history, the prophet Solomon. So, Solomon sends her this letter. It's simple, but it's profound. It's an invitation for her and her people to submit to the one true God. Now, her first instinct, being a powerful monarch, was to handle it with diplomacy through wealth. She sent these amazing, lavish gifts, but Solomon just rejected them. He basically said, "What God has given me is so much greater than any treasure you could possibly send." Well, this got her attention. Bilqis decided to travel to Solomon's court herself, and what she saw there, it changed everything. She witnessed a kind of power and a kind of wisdom that just completely dwarfed her own kingdom's riches. It was a total game changer. She declared her faith, and her entire nation followed her. And this was the absolute peak of Saba, a kingdom that was blessed with both worldly wealth and spiritual clarity. But as history so often teaches us, peaks like that can be, well, they can be pretty precarious. As generations passed, the memory of that spiritual moment began to fade, and this subtle poison started to seep into the heart of the nation. The beautiful virtue of gratitude slowly began to curdle into the ugly vice of pride. You know, it didn't happen overnight. It was this slow, creeping decay. The first generations, they remembered. They were grateful for their blessings. But as time went on, that memory just got dimmer. The later generations, they looked at their dam, their gardens, all their wealth, and they started to think, you know what? We built this. This is all because of us. And this way of thinking, this became the core of their downfall. Prophets were sent to warn them, to remind them, hey, all this prosperity, it's a gift. It's a mercy. But the people of Saba, they just laughed it off. They'd point to their magnificent dam, this huge monument to their own genius, and they declared themselves invincible. They really believed their own intellect had made them immune to disaster. And so, the stage was set for an absolutely epic tragedy. The people were so confident in their unbreakable dam that they couldn't see the ruin that was already taking root right under their noses. And it didn't begin with a bang, but with a whisper. I mean, just think about the irony here. They were probably prepared for every major disaster you can imagine. Foreign armies, huge earthquakes, lightning strikes. But the thing that was actually going to destroy them, it was something they considered totally and utterly insignificant. While they were busy scanning the horizons for giant threats, tiny little mice were just patiently gnawing away at the very foundations of their power. According to the story, they even saw the mice. They saw the minor damage they were causing, but their pride was just so massive they dismissed it. These mice can do nothing to our dam. How could something so small possibly threaten something so grand? You see, their own arrogance made them completely blind. Then, one night it happened. It started with a sound, just a small crack. But that crack grew into a terrifying roar. The very water that had been their lifeblood, their greatest blessing, was unleashed as this unstoppable wave of fury. And in a single night, the symbol of their strength completely collapsed, and their entire paradise was drowned. When the sun rose, there was just silence. The aftermath was a terrible sight, revealing the awful price of their pride. And the story's timeless lesson was now written into the desolate landscape they were forced to call home. Those two magnificent gardens, the ones that provided endless bounty, gone. Just gone. And in their place, two new gardens grew, but they were filled with nothing but thorny bushes, disgusting bitter fruit, and a few sparse trees. The blessing they had taken for granted was replaced by landscape that was a perfect, tragic mirror of their own ingratitude. So why? Why did this happen? Well, the reason is stated so clearly. There's no mystery about it. They weren't punished for some kind of widespread corruption or some great evil act in the way we usually think about it. Their punishment was a direct result of one profound failure. They were ungrateful. And this really gets to the heart of the lesson, doesn't it? Their crime wasn't having wealth. The wealth itself was the blessing. Their crime was believing that they were the sole source of that wealth. It was the pride that came with it, the forgetting of where it all truly came from. That was their ultimate ruin. And that leaves us with a question that just echoes through history. The story of Saba isn't just some ancient tale. It's a timeless warning. It forces us to ask ourselves, in our own lives, in our own societies, what's the greater danger? The blessings we have, or the pride that makes us believe we were entitled to them all along?